Hi, this is Missy with Search is Over LLC coming to you with the Promoting Talent podcast. Today we are speaking with Tony Richards. Go ahead and say hi, Tony.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Missy. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course, we're so excited to have you on tonight. And yeah, I want to get to know you a little bit more. I understand that you're a job seeker looking for a great opportunity.
Yes, I am. Appreciate the opportunity and the time to talk with you, and hopefully, if anybody is interested, hopefully contacting me.
Wonderful. And I understand, are you over in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area?
I am. Have been
Okay.
in the Pittsburgh area for about a year and a half.
Wonderful. Yeah, same here. And I am so excited. Spring is finally sprung. The sunshine is out, and we're going to get rid of this winter, I hope. All the
I
snow.
hope so. Yes.
Great. So, yeah, so I know you're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You said in the past year and a half, and I believe with your resume, you've lived in various areas. Are you open to relocation?
Very much so. Yes. Yeah,
Okay. Do
I
you have
am.
certain places you want to relocate to, possibly?
Um, you know, I think from with my experience, we would be looking at the Southwest, we would be looking at the Northeast, and also even some areas in the Midwest as well. I'm from Chicago originally, but have
Okay.
lived in Washington D.C. and Bismarck, North Dakota, and now in the Pittsburgh area and in Dallas
Okay.
also.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're flexible. That's amazing. And once you get to this location, if a great opportunity should arise, are you looking to be in person, hybrid, remote, or are you open to any of those options?
I'm open to all of the above at this
Oh,
point.
that's great. Hey, you're very flexible, and that's what employers like to see is that you will go with the flow and do what's best for the company. I love it.
Yeah, for me at this point in time and in my life, I have I'm looking at not so much, um, you know, money's important. Don't get me wrong, but the location is important as well because at some point down the road, next 5 to 10 years, think about retirement and everything, and would like to get to a point where we can get into the community and become part of the community. And not have to think about in that amount of time. Also, well, I got to look at now relocating.
Sure. No, it's good to find a home, 100%. And if it's the
Yeah.
right home, might as well stay there long term. So I love that. I'm glad you're thinking ahead as well.
Thank you.
Of course. So I know you've got some amazing experience, but tell me how you got in the current line of work that you're looking to find a position in. So, how did it all start for you, Tony?
Well, I answered an ad years ago when I finished my uh, bachelor's degree, and it was for the credit union industry, and became a consultant, worked with trade associations, and fell into running trade associations. And most of my experience of 28 years plus has been running nonprofits, from financial to healthcare to manufacturing. And I've been very blessed with opportunities to go in and work with some amazing people and organizations, and helping them in taking a look at where they are, but then also the growth factor. How do we get to where we
Or
want to be, and in what amount of time? And then also in training, also I do an awful lot of um, leadership training and leadership development training. And that's what my master's and my doctorate are related to leadership and training.
wonderful. And what type of industries? I mean, in general, I know it sounds like you've done quite a bit of different industries, but do you have a preference or are you kind of open to any kind of corporation?
I'm really open at this point because I answered this to a gentleman one time. I said, when I started with the credit union industry, then the financial industry and the healthcare industry and the manufacturing, I didn't have any experience. But what I found is the commonality that I found with all of them is, how do we better ourselves, but also just as important, if not more, how do we better and strengthen the client or the member relationship or the customer relationship. And that's pretty standard thread throughout all industries. So I'm a quick learner. I really enjoy working with board of directors, working with members, with clients, customers, and staff. So I'm open.
Wonderful. So yeah, I can definitely see people operations, VP, manager,
Yeah.
training director, lots of roles like that come to mind for you, Tony. Especially even with a nonprofit, with charities and so forth. You can tell you have a big heart and a lot of positive, kind of like work. You seem like you really know what you're doing and you care about what you care about the people that you're working for. And I think that's vital.
Yeah, thank you. I really do have a passion. I was a motivational speaker for years. I
Oh,
trained under
wow.
my mentor was the late Zig Ziglar, and
Ah,
his mantra was the way to succeed is to help enough other people get to where they want to be. I really live by that. I really
I
do.
love that.
And I've written 4 management books and have had opportunities over the years to work with some very small mom and pops, some medium sized, and then I've worked for, done training or done some type of leadership development for some Fortune 500 as well as some government agencies.
What an amazing resume you have and great experiences to go along with that. That's great that you can kind of pivot yourself into different varieties of sizes of companies. So like you said, like the smaller, like startups all the way to Fortune 500s. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say
of
I'm doing
course.
some. I'm have a position now where I'm a project manager for a major school uh, system in Pennsylvania, and that's teaching me a lot of flexibility because when you're talking about programming, when you're talking about support, when you're talking about how do we develop that community relationship, not only from an elementary school but a middle school to a high school. Um, you have to look at the same thing and wear different hats sometimes and through different lenses.
I agree. Education is a big one, 100%. I'm familiar with the industry as well, and you do have to be flexible. Since 2020, especially the way things have
Yeah.
transitioned with COVID and just everything else that you see in the school systems. But that's great that you're able to assist in that aspect currently. So
Yeah, and it's a lot of
wonderful.
fun. I love the educational field as well. I've taught at the university level for over 20 years as an adjunct professor, and the last few years, obviously, remotely. And yeah, it just gives you a different perspective.
Nice. Well, perfect. So my next question, Tony, because you're doing fantastic. I mean, if I could hire you right now, I'm learning some things from you right now as well. So I'm loving this mentorship that you're giving me and providing me with my podcast today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, no, of course. So if you could tell me what for employers, let me ask you this. Tell me what makes you memorable. So I mean, everyone has something special. What do you think makes you the most memorable?
I don't try to go into an employer and tell them what to do. Um, I think it goes back from what I mentioned earlier with Zig, mentorship with him is, he said, you never go in and you never say, here's what you need to do. You talk with them, you find out not only the day-to-day business, but get to know them. What's their passion? What drives them? What keeps them up at night? And those are the things that I try to find, whether I'm employed full-time, whether I'm employed as a consultant. It's just important to me to know that, and I hope people, when when I when we work together, that when they think of me, would say, you know what, Tony came in and he was more concerned about the personal side and me and my staff and how we can grow. And he didn't come in and say you need to do this, this, and this. He came in and we talked through it.
Nice.
We developed plans. We developed a strategy, and we go from there. When I teach leadership, I teach primarily what I call the gap analysis, not from a financial standpoint, but the gap analysis, and that's growth, attitude, and performance. And
Oh, I like that.
I try to go into an organization and say, what is the growth perspective? What's the attitude of not only um, the leadership and the board, but the staff? What about the clients, the customers, the community? What's the attitude towards us in those environments? And then the performance, how are we performing? What do we want to do? Everybody says, oh, I want to make money. I want to, but let's put that aside. That's a given.
Sure.
We all want to make money. However, what is the performance level that is when somebody, if I went into the community, and I've done this on a number of times, and I said, tell me what you know about XYZ company. I'll just go into an organization or a bank or a grocery store, even a restaurant, and just start talking and say, hey, XYZ company is a pretty big employer in this community. What do you think of them? And it's amazing the information that you walk away with. And a lot of times most of the time it's positive, but there are times when people, will say, well, I'm really, and I go back and reflect that to the leadership because they need to know that. So those are the things I think that make me more memorable, if you would. Um, but I just want to give them basically a holistic approach
I
to
love it.
where they are and where they need to be.
And you said it was called The Gap. Is that how you
Yeah.
remember it?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
I almost got like an employment expert tip here. I know usually on Thursdays is whenever I have my expert employer podcast. So I love that. I'm learning from you now. So hopefully our employers will see that, their hiring managers, that you are there to continue to, to grow and not to just change everything. I love that you want to go into it with an open mind and be there to support them. Not everyone is like that in a management role or a VP role, so I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
great, Tony. Different attitude, different set of standards, and just kind of looking ahead. So perfect. So just a couple more questions, because you're doing amazing on this podcast today. If you had the attention of the entire world, which is a pretty large world, for 5 minutes, what would you want to say to the world?
um, go forward together.
Okay.
There's too much garbage going on in the world today. There's too much, we're all bogged down in red tape. We're all bogged down in rules and regulations and policies and everything else. And you have to have them. Don't get me wrong. You have to
Sure.
have them. But I always tell organizations there's three cultures that are every organization really faces. And others may say no, there's more, but there's three that I focus on. One is the individual culture, the biases, the experience you bring in, the prejudices, the everything that makes you, makes your individual employees that unique individual employee. Then there's the culture of what I call the department. I've been in many organizations where someone has said to me, we're walking through an organization, a department, let's say in the organization, let's say an accounting department, and someone will say, Tony, it's amazing to me because you see there's these three accountants here and these two accountants over here. Uh, and these two get along so well, and these three, it's like they don't even know each other, and they've
Sure.
been, and yet we're all in one. Well, it's over time. I'll say, well, what happens? What's the dynamics of the two? Well, these two have been together for a long time. These three, I don't know why, but we have a lot of turnover and everything. It goes back to the first part of the culture. Before you can develop a departmental culture, how do the people interact and interrelate within that department? And maybe it's maybe somebody's upsetting somebody, and it's more because of something that happened in the past, and
Sure.
they don't know. Well, until you get to know that, you're always going to have problems. And then the third culture is, of course, the organization, the policies, procedures, and everything else. And when you get all three of those, and when I talk with leaders and teach leadership, and we talk about the dynamics of those things and how they come together, put strategies and plans in place, it's amazing what happens when you go back and and talk with them, and they say, wow, we implemented these three out of these five things, and wow, it's making a difference. So I think that's a big part of it.
No, I love that. Yeah, culture is huge. It really, truly is. And I've worked with companies where they say culture is this and culture is that. And then you find out very quickly it's not everything that they said was, accurate. Let's put it that way. And then I've had cultures where you expected not so great a culture, but then, you looked and you're like, this is amazing. The retention and the way people are treated and the time off, and just the
Yeah.
collaboration with the
Yep.
teams. And
Yep.
there's a lot of aspects that go into a team culture. So I love that. I love that there's different, you kind of hit on three different types of culture. You kind of dived into that. You went and took a dive into that a little more in depth for our audience. So I appreciate that. So last question for you, Tony, because I know the world is a busy place. So for our listeners, I just want to kind of wrap it up. What's one final thought that you would want to leave our listeners with today? So obviously I know that you're looking for an opportunity, but what would you like to add that we haven't discussed yet?
Um, Take a look at your organization, not only through your eyes and the ways that you would like to see it happen, but really focus in on what is happening. And the way you do that is by talking to your people, finding out where they're coming from, what they're thinking. I did training for a large organization one time, and I was told by the leadership that this is the way it is, and this is the way it's going to be. You're going to see it when it came to when it came down to do the training and talking with the people, it was altogether different. And what really came to mind was people saying, yeah, they're telling us what they want, but they're doing things the exact opposite. So be clear in your direction, be clear in your thought, and but get to know your people. Because if you don't get to know your people, you're missing a lot. They're missing a lot as well, but you are missing an awful lot. Studies that are done right now, Missy, most people will leave an organization not because of the money. It's because of the leadership. It's because of the
Oh, that's
culture.
accurate.
It's because of lack of communication. Take the time and really get to know your people, get to know your customer as well, and get to know your community, because you play a bigger role than you realize. So that's what I'd like to leave people with.
I love that, Tony. And you're correct. Money, yeah, money's important. Everyone needs to make, financially, they have to make sure they can cover, their
Yeah,
expenses and plus some for travel and so forth. But realistically, the reason they even start looking is because they're not supported, they're not heard, they're not respected.
right.
And it's hard. It does come from the high level down, throughout the team. And if a director or president or whoever that person may be at the top is not listening and taking that time to get to know their team and making sure that they can retain them, you're going to have turnover, you're going to have a mess. And people want to see that you've been with companies for a long term. They want to see the seniority. And yeah, they're like, okay, I've been here, this is my
Yeah,
tenure. So I,
yeah.
I love that. I think those are really great facts. I'd love to have you as a 10-year employee for your next organization. And it sounds like you have some really great skills, Tony. I mean, you're versatile, you're flexible on where you live. You've been working in various industries and various sizes. I mean, you really got the whole package. So for these listeners today, these hiring managers, I would hire Tony in a heartbeat. And I'm so glad you could join us today, Tony.
I am too. Thank you so much. And yeah, I'd love the opportunity to talk to anyone, because I am at a point in my career, as I mentioned in my life, that we're not looking to make a move just to move for a year or two.
Sure.
But I'm willing to make a commitment. And if there's someone out there that would like to talk, I'd welcome the opportunity.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of your day. And yeah, thank you again. Bye, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you, Missy. Thanks so much. Take
You're
care.
very welcome.
Bye.